At a young age, I've always been an inquisitive and curious kid. I always asked why a lot. I broke a lot of stuff until I was caught a destroyer by my siblings and parents. It was me at 3 holding on to a pair of scissors trying to trim a plant for my mom. At 12, I started selling Christmas cards during holidays, and I would take about $1 for every pack of cards I sold. I would try many different ways to get the best out of the 3 to 5 seconds after someone actually opens up the door for me. I also learned how to smile. I got on to sell stamps with the cards to make sure the lives of the customer was actually a lot easier, and I made at least $2 for each pack of cards I sold. At 17, I went on to tech for the very first time. It was back in the late 90s. That was also the time of the dot-com boom and crash, of course. But that was the time when I truly discovered how to build websites from scratch using HTML, PHP, connecting databases, building shopping carts. It was very easy money back then when you know how to code and build stuff. Fast forward many years later, after a few ventures, raising funds, losing all of them, I did time as a management consultant, spent time in a corporate environment like Daimler, and then currently now I'm with PDV. I've been a lifetime learner of constant changes and innovation. And today I'm glad to share with you about my journey with open innovation from corporate to cities. So what is open innovation? It's a practice, a process of businesses and organizations sourcing ideas from external sources as well as internal ones. So what that means is the outside in and inside out approach of generating problem statements, looking for solutions and best practices. It may sound easy, but it's actually extremely difficult, particularly in a corporate environment when you have multiple stakeholders' interests that you need to consider. Stakeholders can be top or middle management, your working colleagues, your co-workers, shareholders, CXOs, and also sometimes geopolitical influence if it's a global company. And for city-level innovation, this can also be pretty challenging when there are differences in political views, silos within agencies, and usually a change of individual taking office positions will change their stand in innovation. A우토반 is probably one of the corporate accelerator franchise with longevity running since 2016. It has transformed from an exclusive Daimler-only accelerator to a multi-partner program, which probably contributed to its longevity. Personally, I run the one in Singapore, the fintech version, back in 2017. In Germany, currently, the program opens up to many other corporate partners, such as BASF, Bosch, Porsche Cars, Hyundai, and so on and so forth. This allows cross-pollination of problem statements, best practices, failure stories, essentially creating a culture of sharing and open innovation. Just to highlight some of the more recent startups, Spread AI in the recent 10 Expo for A우토반 had the opportunity to work with multiple companies, such as Mercedes and Porsche, to contribute their AI technology to advance the company's digitalization journey in the planning, design, engineering processes. Another startup that is worth mentioning, Circularize. It facilitates a company by tracing carbon emission of producing the material right from the source. So imagine the plastic, the metal, and the other materials that's being used to produce a car. This actually helps the company to make the right decision on which material to use in order for them to meet the carbon neutrality goal. After running open innovation, interacting with many corporate innovators and also startups as an investor myself, I have 3 major learnings that I'd like to share. First of all, collaborate, not collide. And so what that means for corporate, have innovation evangelists within the corporate environment. They are the one actually break down the barriers, break down the walls, but at the same time bridging the information and communication between the startups and the business unit. For corporates, have the willingness to try out new technology, product, but at the same time draw boundaries and sandbox to test the product without affecting your core business. From a startup standpoint, have the patience to last the engagement journey and also know when to say no or pivot when it's not align with your long-term goal. Be willing to go into IP co-ownership discussion, licensing discussion, particularly with the corporate when doing open innovation or co-development work. Low fee, not free. From a corporate standpoint, always have the willingness to pay and cover the cost of the pilot. The startups, they need to eat, they need to live, they need to contribute to their family. So remember that. From a startup standpoint, have the willingness not to make a big margin through this engagement, but take this as a learning process and for you to advance your product and your relevance. The third point, work fast, not shabby. From a corporate standpoint, set common objectives with the startups within a time frame, some 10 weeks, some 12 weeks, some 16 weeks. Commit the time and resources to engage and run the POCs or pilots, and trying to avoid having the pilot timeline overrun and allowing your core business priorities to affect the timeline. From a startup standpoint, be flexible in accommodating the stakeholders' time slot, particularly as much as possible, because truthfully told, the corporates would still need to manage their core business in order to support this innovation agenda. In BDV Group, we do have a program called The Next Move. This is also a platform where we get startups at early stages or even students to share ideas with us. And us being a software company, this is where we would actually validate your ideas to see how relevant they are to our current suite of products. The typical corporate accelerator address mainly bottom line improvements for enterprises. So what are bottom line improvements? Increasing efficiencies, streamlining processes, digitalization, offering better reportings, and improving current customer and employee experience. Top line growth is usually done through creation of new business ventures, spin-offs, offering brand new products to capture a new customer segment, or creating new channels for the same product to capture another customer segment. This was an attempt that I was involved with the team back in 2016, 2017, here in Korea actually, when we gone on to validate multiple different mobility concepts in a period of 6 months with low-cost experimental methods, such as social media outreach to discover new segments, concierge prototyping, where we walk through customer journey at the very early stage before building any products. One of them, we even try to hook up a car with a proprietary connected car boxes. So this is the time before Mercedes-Me Connect. This facilitates the secure locking and unlocking of a car remotely, starting the process for us to test concepts such as peer-to-peer car rental, short-term rental, shared list, and eventually resulted in a new line of business. Here's an example how we've done our early outreach through Facebook, created a brand out of nothing called Catch Me, and we threw some ads online, and eventually we collected, engaged some followers through the messenger. Through there, we are able to interview them, finding out what they like about the concept, what they dislike about the concept, and we even have the chance to talk about price point as well. So now let me move on to the second part of my sharing, innovation within cities. The vision of most, if not all, local government is to respond to the needs of the people and businesses within its city. So some of the issues that they look into: safety, enforcement, food security, environmental, transportation, energy, how to increase trade investments, reducing unemployment rates, increasing literacy rates. And hence, likewise, they look into both the top line and bottom line, try to bring the costs down in running the cities through efficiency, and at the same time finding new ways, better ways to respond to the need of the community. Cities such as New South Wales, Australia, Singapore, Seoul, Fukuoka, Taipei City, even the UK as well, have their own respective smart city programs, smart nation, innovation team to address open innovation topics. Here with these teams, what they will do, they will be the one collecting prompt statements across different agencies, and then they will start engaging industries and startups, not just from locally, but across the world, to address those prompt statements. and they are also the ones that actually break down the barriers of the silos between the agencies. One of the use cases I'd like to share with you is from Taipei. So Taipei is battling with the most challenging threat in their lifetime on the advancement in global warming. New Taipei City, with a population of 3.9 million residents, has 94% of its people living in the urban area. Not forgetting that the number of vehicles on the road has multiplied over the years, with the motorcycles amounting to over 2 million. And the latest statistics where the sales of new cars vehicles hit a 15-year high in 2020 despite the pandemic. No doubt that this has tremendous environmental impact on the road and the traffic condition. To ensure smooth flowing of traffic in its business district of Nangang and Neihu, Taipei City decided to use a smart adaptive traffic signal, real-time traffic solution to optimize traffic flow, thereby reducing emissions and vehicle delays. Based on real-time traffic data, they can then quickly react and adjust to what is happening on the road. The smart traffic lights even go one step further by automatically designing a range of signal control options, sending the optimized signal plan to the local controller in a 5-minute interval. So what's the result? The average travel delay time improved by 13%, resulted in a significant reduction in CO2 emission and fuel consumption by 10%. Shifting the focus to the western central part of Taiwan, Taichung City has been suffering from heavy congestion for many years. Not forgetting that it's the third largest populated city in Taiwan with 2.8 million dwellers. According to TomTom data on Taichung traffic, just by driving during the congested period, the peak hours for the year can amount up to about 126 hours of congestion. To relieve the worsening traffic congestion, Taichung City upgraded its ITS system with a real-time solution that predicts traffic flows almost instantaneously. In 2018, Taichung City also won the distinguished Honor Award as the best ITS project for its real-time traffic prediction system. Such results are proven with the convenience offered to the drivers for them to reach their destination in a much shorter time. So with the enhanced network capacity, it has really reduced the journey by 9.5%. The average speed also improved by at least 8%, and the total vehicle flow increased by 7.6%. Quoting from resident from Taichung, Mr. Guo, with the real-time traffic prediction, adaptive traffic control, us as residents, we have seen improvement in Taichung traffic, such as the diversion marking of slow lanes or even beautifying the roads. Driving experience has been a lot more pleasurable. Shifting gears to electrification. Transport is one of the main sources of air pollution, which is evident on direct effects on mortality and respiratory diseases. The average petrol car on the road in the UK produces the equivalent of 180 grams of CO2 every kilometer, while a diesel car produces 173 grams of CO2. In England, car trips made up about 60% for those as short as 1 to 2 miles or 2 to 3 kilometers. There is an increasing consensus on the need for more sustainable transportation. To reduce greenhouse emission, city governments shift their city-level policies to environmentally friendly ones, particularly for transport, and have set proposed target to transit to all zero-emission vehicles in the next 3 decades. So this is where you see cities, differences in like UK, Singapore, Thailand, setting targets to convert existing cars on the road to electric vehicles by 2030, 2040, 2050. Two of the main problems preventing the widespread of EV adoption. There are 2 main problems. One of them is actually the lack of charging stations. And the other one is whether the existing power grid that is supporting the city is able to power the network of charging stations that's being planned, whether it's a slow charger or fast charger. With the limited resources, no cities are able to provide charging sources all around the city. Taking into account the location hardware installation, usage pattern, an innovation project called Charge, led by the consortium SP, which is short for Scottish Power, has emerged to accelerate the deployment of public charging infrastructure to gain insights into where electric points are needed and its impact on the electricity network. In this case, they use electric grid supply information and travel patterns to do the prediction. By identifying the best locations for charge points, this can then fulfill the need of EV motorists and at the same time ensuring that the electricity network is used efficiently and most importantly, when the chargers are installed at the right locations with maximized usage at a cost-efficient way. Projects like this help to increase the number of charge points to connect, speed up the connection of charge points, thereby increasing the uptake of EVs and which in turn support the city's transition towards electrification, thereby also supporting the decarbonization of mobility. So this brings me to the end of my sharing. Thanks a lot for the Star Audubon Korea organizer, N15 as well, for me to do my sharing. And I hope through my sharing, I can inspire more startups, corporates, and even cities to start innovating openly. So if you wish to expand the idea or like to learn more about the different use cases that I've experienced, feel free to connect with me. And now I hand the time back to the organizers of Startup Audubon Korea.